Good morning, everyone, and welcome to all of you to our debate on the European digital identity. What are the ingredients for success? Today's debate is hosted by the IF Steering Committee member, Andrus Ansip, MEP with the Renew Europe group from Estonia, member of the IMCO Committee in the European Parliament, as well as a former EU Commissioner for the Digital Single Market, as I'm sure many of you remember. Good morning, Andrus, and thank you very much for taking the lead on this debate at the European Internet Forum. I will leave the floor in a moment after I introduce our panelists. Today we're joined by Lorena Boix Alonso, who is Director for Digital Society, Trust and Cybersecurity at DG Connect, European Commission. Welcome, Lorena. Welcome back to our forum. We're also joined by Alba Feraud, who is president of Eurosmart, a professional organization promoting the technical know-how of the European digital security industry, where he co-chairs the Cybersecurity and Digital Identity Committee. Last but not least, a warm welcome to Dr. Jens Bender, who's head of division with the German Federal Commissioner for Data Protection and Freedom of Information. We were supposed to be joined also by MEP Romana Jerkovic today, but she sent her apologies and unfortunately she is no longer able to join us. Thank you all very much for being with us this morning. Now, with no further ado, I will leave the floor to Andrus Ansip, hosting MEP, for his opening remarks, and then we will listen to all our speakers. And of course, as usual, if you're familiar with EIF debates, a Q&A session will follow. So I invite our audience to be ready with their questions. The floor is yours, Andrus.
Thank you, Maria Rosa. To begin, I would like to thank all the panelists, all the participants, all the organizers of this event. I hope we will have fruitful debate today. As we all remember, we got the eIDAS regulation already in the year 2014. And the framework of European trust service providers was created with this eIDAS regulation, and it really works. But mutual recognition of digital signatures across the European Union is so-so. Only 14 member states joined with this system. They notified their solutions, and among those 14, there are some member states where people are practically not using those digital identities, digital signatures. And in some countries which did not notify their solutions, people are heavily using their digital identities, but state does not want to give any guarantees to those solutions. I think it was also because of COVID-19 that in practically all the member states, people and politicians also understood that digital identities you can use across borders in the European Union are needed. And we all know we have really good private service providers or global service providers as Google and Apple, Facebook providing good identification tools, but people would like to have something which is 100% under their control. And that's why digital identity wallet was proposed. In my country, government state gives a single digital identity to all our citizens, but unfortunately it's not the case in all the member states, because this kind of system is not allowed even according to their constitutions. So, digital identity wallet. What's the difference with this single digital identity guaranteed by the government? In into digital identity wallet, you can put your credentials, your travel passport, ID card, university diploma, driver's license, whatever, and all this is your identity. So you can have my copy of my ID cards, but showing this ID card, nobody believes that you are me. So this link between wallet and my identity has to be guaranteed 100%. So wallet is needed. Many people say that this wallet has to be based on secure elements in our mobile phones. So I believe this wallet has to be technologically neutral. Both software-based solutions and hardware-based solutions, they have to be accepted, because in some countries, like in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, in many other countries, the most popular identification tool is based on software solution. It's based on threshold cryptography. We call it split keys technology. It works, it's certified, and people are using this system every day. So wallet is needed. Wallet has to be technologically neutral. I expected that we will get 1, 2, 3, 4 digital identity wallets in the European Union. Some kind of consortia will be created to create those identity wallets, but now it seems that we will get 27 digital identity wallets. All our member states will have at least one digital identity wallet. So but later on, I believe there will be some kind of concentration, centralization. We will use the same type of solutions as we know when using smart ID cards. Chips are produced by, or cards are produced by a couple of producers, but cards are different in different member states. Sorry, I'm not in the best shape, but it's not COVID. To put credentials into wallet, also some concentration is needed. Because it will be terribly expensive when all those small universities are issuing diplomas, that they have to act as certification bodies. And verification part is also really important. As we know about those vaccination certificates, this verification can be offline, as it was here in the European Parliament, it means in Belgium, and online, as it was in Estonia. In Estonia, by the way, all our theaters are using Belgian solution because it's much quicker, much more comfortable than this online solution officially we created for Estonians. So, but here in the Parliament, when entering in those premises, you had to show your QR code, and I had 2 certificates. One was not valid anymore based on 2 doses. Another was based on 3 doses, but I was warmly welcomed by both. So one was not valid. But when something like this will happen with your driver's license, driving the car, being not so sober, you still have QR codes in your mobile phone. So there are many open questions. We have to provide answers how to put those credentials into wallet, how this wallet has to look like, and how to verify those credentials. But it's absolutely clear this digital identity wallet has to be really user-friendly. If it will be very easy to use, then our people will start to use it. If it will be complicated, too many choices, then it will be a failure once again. So this proposal was warmly welcomed in the parliament because, yeah, everybody is able to understand that mutual recognition of digital identities across the European Union has to become as a reality. And I'm really looking forward to have this time success, and I'm looking forward to have a fruitful debate. Thank you very much once again for organizing this event.
Thank you very much, Andrus, indeed for setting the scene for today's discussion, taking us through some of the details of the initiative, and starting from the eIDAS regulation, of course, which was the start of the journey, so to say. Now we will hear from the European Commission with Lorena Boyce Alonso.
Thank you very much, Maria Rosa. Thank you, Andrus, and thank you all honorable members and all the other colleagues that are joining to give the Commission the opportunity to share our vision, how we see things in our legislative proposal, and also to attach the importance that this subject deserves. It is extremely important. This is, by the way, why it is included in the European Declaration on Digital Rights and Principles for the Digital Decade that is now being discussed between the Parliament, the Council, and the Commission, and that I hope we will all be able to very soon proclaim. It's also important, and this is why it was included as a target in the digital decade that by 2030, at least 80% of citizens should be using eID means under eIDAS. So thank you very much for this debate. The importance, and Andrus mentioned it already, the importance of digital identification has been shown by the COVID pandemic, where we were all somehow forced to use online services and therefore to identify ourselves. And suddenly we discover, some of us, that oops, we don't have it, or it's not working across borders. Others were lucky to have a country that was offering a very efficient system. I would like to say that there's another sad situation that is showing also the power of this type of e-identification, which is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine has a powerful eID system. It's a wallet as well. And this is being used, and it's fixing a number of issues for those refugees that now try to identify themselves. So this is also a real-life example of how these eID systems, if they are easy to use, can solve situations. Now, you were asking what are the ingredients for success? Some of them have been mentioned already. I would mention 4. One was said by Andrus. It will only work if it's easy, if it's convenient for the citizen. This is, by the way, why many of us, or some people, I stopped to use it, I must say, are using convenient systems that exist in the market by large platforms, for example. And this easy to use, the usability, this is why we, in our legislative proposal, propose a wallet, because it's something you can have in your mobile, and also because in this wallet, and this is in the legislative proposal as well, the idea is that the citizen can deal not only with e-identification data, but also, as mentioned already, with other type of electronic expressions of a wide range of other attributes, such as professional qualifications, driving licenses, proving my age. So these that are not typically an EID, but that you can have in your wallet and that would be regulated. So user friendliness and flexibility would be the first ingredient. A second ingredient would be security and privacy. This is what makes the difference with what exists already on the market. We have a number of very convenient and very simple to use way of identifying ourselves offered by big platforms that can be very convenient indeed for a number of users where we are not worried about our data being used for the other purposes. That's their business model. But as we have seen during the pandemic, there are a number of many use cases where you want to have security and your privacy guaranteed. So this is why, for me, this is key to success. This is what is going to make the citizen trust the system, and not only the citizen, but also the relying party. And this is why in our legislative proposal, we are proposing that for security, the level of assurance is high, and that all these functionalities would be subject to certification, in particular for GDPR and cybersecurity certification would be required. This is also why the idea is that the user is in control on the release of the data. This is what is going to help the privacy, so that it will be always transparent to me what data I am about to release, and then it will be for me to accept that or not. So that's the second ingredient. The third ingredient that is obvious, but not that easy to achieve, is, of course, that all the systems can talk to each other. Something that we have tried to achieve in the current EIDAS via interoperability of different systems and the system of the nodes and all that, and that now the idea, and we were inspired very much by the EU COVID certificate, is to base ourselves on common standards. And it is true that it's challenging, but if we manage, and we will manage, then it's the easiest thing, because it doesn't mean that there has to be only one wallet. There can be, and there would be 27 wallets, but if they are all based on common standards and technical specifications, then they will talk to each other from their inception. That's the idea. The last ingredient is, of course, citizens will use the wallet if there are use cases for that. So this is why, differently from what is the current system of EIDAS, we go beyond public services. So the acceptance of the wallet as an identification system should be mandatory, not only to access public services in another country, which is only a very small percentage of what citizens need, but also large platforms, and as well those services that today are already requiring a strong identification system. And here, for example, it could be transport, financial system, etc. So that we have all these use cases. So for me, this would be the 4 ingredients for success. And I hope that on the one hand, together with the co-legislators, and on the other with the national experts as regards the toolbox, we will manage to get this very, very soon and very quickly. I leave the rest for the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lorena, for this very exhaustive list of ingredients for success of such an interesting, beautiful initiative indeed. And you have mentioned some strong ones like trust, for example, but also the security and privacy, which I'm sure our next speakers will cover even more in depth. So the floor goes now to Alba Feraud with Eurosmart.
Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, I'm really glad to be here and to represent Eurosmart. So just a few words about Eurosmart. So Eurosmart is a truly European association which gather European companies of the digital security industry. And since our creation, we've always been advocating for security in digital interaction. So digital identity is not a new topic for us. We have been following it from 1999 first, with the directive on electronic signature, and then AI-1, and now the current proposal, which we're actively following and working on, especially on our cybersecurity and digital identity working group, which is closely monitoring this initiative. So regarding AI-DAS, this proposal for amending the existing regulation is very much welcomed by our association and our members. So it is a major initiative for citizen member states and European companies. And this initiative will be a funding one. And we shall not miss this opportunity. What we're going to do now all together, Parliament, Commission, and member states, will shape the digital world for the next decades. We must make sure that all the key principles are well reflected in this text. We shall make this ambition a reality and even more a success. And in our eyes, there are three ingredients that are absolutely necessary to make it a success. This is indeed security, as you highlighted, data protection, and also making sure that this ecosystem that will be shaped by this regulation will be open and transparent. So data protection in our eyes is absolutely necessary to engage users and citizens. If citizens do not trust the ecosystem and do not have enough guarantee that their data will be protected and what would not be misused, they would not accept to use it. Therefore, it's very important to pay particular attention to that topic. So we very much welcome the obligation to have a mandatory data protection certification of the wallet as enacted in Article 6C. But we observe that it should also be extended to another key actor of the ecosystem, which is the provider of electronic attestation, provider of qualified electronic attestation, which is not subject to the same requirement, but that also handle a lot of personal data. Also, we have noted that some key points should be clarified that are, in our eyes, of the utmost importance. The first one is the territoriality of data. We think that data should only be stored, processed on EU soil by EU operator, so that they're only ruled by EU laws. The case of separate legal entity, as defined in Article 45F, which actually doesn't precise what are the scope of activities that should be listed under such separate legal entity. This should be clarified. And third point is the particular case of the legal person, where Article 45F, which apply for the wallet and for the provider of qualified attestation, doesn't provide any safeguards regarding data pertaining to legal persons, as it only ensures protection of personal data. This is important in the light of the Cloud Act, for instance. Regarding security, so it shouldn't be a surprise from where I talk, security is very important to us. This is also a key factor to engage citizens and engage stakeholders for the same reasons as the one related to data protection. We are quite surprised, and we think the text could be enhanced, in particular Article 6A, to explicitly state that one of the key features of the wallet should be security. It's meant indeed in Article 6C, but it's not explicitly stated as a key feature of the wallet. And we think it should be added along with the other one. This is, I think, that would be a very important signal towards the citizen. Also, if the security certification is made mandatory, we think those security certifications should leverage under the CSA and the framework that has been established under the Cybersecurity Act. And in that sense, we think that a mandatory security certification under the Cyber Act should be mandated. Besides, in the light of the sensitivity of the data we are talking of, which are the data pertaining to citizens, the highest level of confidence should be required. Therefore, mandatory security certification pursuant to the Cyber Act at level high should be mandated by this text. EIDAS2 and the Cybersecurity Act are the perfect match to ensure that the European Digital Identity Wallet comply with the highest level of security. This is something very important. Last but not least, open and transparent ecosystem. In our eyes, also, this is a very important ingredient. So this text focuses a user-centric approach and targets the mobile device as a key enabler to access digital identity. We very much welcome this. But usually mobile phone and mobile phone ecosystem are usually in the hand of large actors, which are called gatekeepers. And this particular situation should not lead to a situation where innovation is impeded or hampered. Innovation is absolutely crucial to meet the objective I heard before, which is developing innovative solutions, innovative technologies, innovative services that could increase reach and penetration towards citizens. And this should be absolutely promoted. And in that case, innovation should be promoted. Secondly, this particular situation where gatekeepers have a specific position in the ecosystem should not also impede resilience and diversity of solution. Resilience also is of utmost importance to ensure resilience in case of cyber attack, but also to make sure that there's a balanced relation between member states and private sectors. Member states should not face major actors. And in that sense, diversity also is a key point. In our eyes, to meet those two goals, competition is absolutely needed so that there could be an open diversity of solution, diversity of actors, and fostering innovation. So the text also and the legislator should make sure that competition could be promoted. Fair competition, but it's in a control competition. And in our eyes, the DMA could be very useful. So I would like also to thank the European Parliament for its efficient and swift work on the completion of this text, this file, which is actually absolutely crucial in funding for the next year. And DMA could be a useful tool to make sure competition could be fostered. It could allow Commission to ensure free access to technology provider, but also to service provider, to key components that are in mobile phone, be it software component, be it hardware component. In the case of digital identity, it could be, for instance, access to secure element, which could be very useful to store very sensitive assets on mobile phones, but also local sensors to support offline communication as enacted in the regulation for peer-to-peer, in face-to-face, to the NFC sensors, to the Bluetooth sensor, and so on and so forth, and the rest also. And we think it's very important to make sure that this competition is ensured in the framework of the wallet and digital identity wallet, and that the Commission should be in position to exercise the provision of the DMA, should it be needed, to really make sure that competition is vivid. Therefore, we think that DMA and EIDAS go hand in hand, and the exercise of DMA should be considered to make sure that this file is a success. As a conclusion, so those three factors, data protection, security, and open and transparent ecosystem, are in our eyes key ingredients for the success. But beyond that, those three ingredients are also instrumental for the digital sovereignty of Europe. They will ensure sovereignty, they will ensure transparency into the technical solutions that are deployed, auditability, accountability. And another aspect also to go also towards a higher level of sovereignty is also to make sure that the actors that will interact with this wallet are also subject to the EU law, be it union law or national law. And in that sense, it's also necessary to make sure that the relying party interacting with the wallet, being to consume digital identity or to onboard or to provision data into the wallet, are also subject to union law. And EIDAS should also provide means to ensure that those are effectively subject to union laws, to make sure, for instance, they abide by the GDPR, they abide by the cybersecurity regulation or other union and national laws. So that's my main messages.
Thank you very much, Alban. You have shared very clear messages and also made some connections to the Cybersecurity Act and other initiatives indeed that are now on the table. Thank you very much. I'll now give the floor to Dr. Jens Bender with the Commissioner for Data Privacy.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to have some words on data protection in this area. Luckily, everyone talking before me already talked about security and data protection, so I think more or less we are all on the same page here, which is good. We all know that digitalization is very important. We learned that, especially in the last 2 years, that it's extremely important to offer electronic services to citizens, and electronic identities, and especially the wallet as an extension of electronic identities, are certainly important tools to offer electronic services to citizens in a secure and usable and friendly way. So that's certainly a good way forward. Of course, a wallet is also a challenge. It's an opportunity, that's obvious, but it's also a challenge. You store all user data in one wallet. That's the very purpose of the wallet, to have everything in the same place, which is an opportunity, but also a challenge from the data protection and security point of view. We need to do it right. So having a problem, a security or data protection problem in the wallet would be a disaster, so to say. So we need really to make it sure to do it right. Also from a data protection point of view, from GDPR point of view, it's certainly a slight challenge that data from many different data providers, attestation providers, are stored in the same wallet. So you have different controllers for all the different data, but that's more a legal problem. I think that's easy, not easy to solve, but solvable. Legal problems are usually easier to solve than technical problems, in my view. So I would try not to repeat everything which was already said. So I would talk a little bit about 2 or 3 points which were not yet addressed in detail. The eIDAS 2 regulation is based on user consent, or the wallet is based on user consent, which is good, obviously, from a data protection point of view, that the user is has the data under his own control, especially if the data are stored locally on the phone. That's certainly something we appreciate. But we have to keep in mind that consent is not everything. So if you look into the GDPR or in the principles of data protection, for example, if you have a large power asymmetry between the relying party and the citizen, for example, if the citizen is talking to a public administration, usually the public administration has some position of power, you cannot really give freely consent. So consent in the meaning of the GDPR is always informed and freely given consent. So of course, the citizen needs to be able to actually identify the relying party. It's extremely important that relying parties are securely identified, so the citizen can be ensured that the data are going to the right relying party, and especially if the relying party is a party in power, it needs to be ensured that the relying party is not asking for too much data in the system. This is actually already in the eIDAS 2 regulation, so it's not a criticism on the regulations. The regulation already says, the proposal for the regulation, that relying parties needs to be registered. So we just need to make sure that during the technical work on the technical specifications, this registration, this identification of relying parties is actually done the right way. The other point I would like to mention shortly is the unique identifier, which is a bit of a problem from a data protection point of view. What we have in the eIDAS 1 regulation is an identifier which is as permanent as possible over time and can be sector specific. So if you identify to a relying party, you identify as Jens Bender by your name, and additionally there can be a kind of identifier transmitted, which can be different for all relying parties, and in many countries actually is different for the different relying parties, and which may change over time. For example, if you have a card-based ID system, if you change the cards, the identifier can change. The eIDAS 2 regulation now foresees that this identifier gets permanent over time, and also the same for all relying parties, as I understand. And that's certainly a critical point for the data protection community, since this is enables global tracking, so to say, over time and over all sectors. It was mentioned, I think, by all three of you talking before me, that it's important that we think about digital sovereignty, that we position ourselves as a trusted alternative to existing larger private ID systems. And I think one of the major differences we can make, besides being a European system, is obviously not enabling global tracking as a kind of not to enable global tracking, which might lead to mistrust by citizens. So we need to be really sure that we don't put something in there which leads to mistrust. If we look at the principles of data protection, the right question is never, is it good or bad to transmit data? The question is always, is it necessary to transmit data? And I think, or the data protection community thinks, that transmission of a unique global identifier is not necessary in the terms of identity. If you if you think in terms of e-government, for example, usually you make an application. The application is processed by the government, and at some point in time, you get a decision, and then the case is closed. So you don't need to know that I made an application 40 years before to the same, to another government entity. So this global tracking is certainly something which needs to be discussed very detailed. To close my remarks, what is important to take for take-up of the wallet? I think more or less everything was mentioned already by the other speakers. We need to have usability in there. We need to be acceptance by the citizens in there. We need security. We need data protection. What I especially like is that existing schemes like CSA certification, GDPR certification are leveraged by the proposal. So it's not reinventing the wheels where already existing solutions are present. I think interoperability is a key point in terms of success. We don't want to have one wallet, or it's not necessary that we have one wallet by one provider, but several solutions available, but of course they need to be interoperable. I think we will need several solutions in the European market to cover different needs for citizens coming from different countries, having different national traditions. But I agree with Ansip that probably it's not 28 wallets in the end, hopefully not 28 wallets, but maybe 3 or 4 providers. Actually, I expect it's the same for IDAS 1, that we have a kind of convergence for ID systems, but it hasn't happened yet. So I hope it will happen for the wallet case. I would invite to involve during the IT security and the data protection community during the technical specification work to make sure that the needs of the citizen are respected. Data protection especially is protection of citizens' rights. So it's not something which is an afterthought or an optional add-on. It must be one of the key enablers of the wallet to have IT security and data protection in there from the beginning. So far for my opening remarks. Thank you.